Imagine yourself working at a construction site, having to carry heavy materials uphill from a car. It's already hard work, and the day is far from over. Then, unexpectedly, the boss, Mr. Senior, parked his car there, not knowing that his day was about to become much nicer. However, the one who parked there soon realized she had made a big mistake. She brought all the trouble upon herself. This is what happens when you're impolite and disrespectful. Let me break it down for you. A construction worker was in charge of a tough job. They had to build a house on a hill, and the path to get there was 250 feet long. That meant they had to carry all the materials up the hill by hand, which was really hard. Luckily, there were 2 special parking spots at the bottom of the hill just for the construction workers. They put up signs that said no parking to make sure the spots were always empty for the trucks bringing supplies. There was a problem. An elementary school was nearby, and lots of cars were parking there illegally ever since the construction work began. But what happened next was even more surprising. Normally, when people parked there while waiting for their kids to finish school, the construction workers didn't bother them because they didn't really need those parking spots. If they did need them, they politely asked the drivers to move, and most of the time, they cooperated. On days when they were expecting materials to be delivered, the foreman had to make sure that those parking spots were clear. But on that particular day, a car was parked in one of those spots. What happened next is something you'd expect to see in a movie. A woman was in the car, probably waiting for her child to come out of school. The foreman approached her and explained that she had parked illegally. That's when things took an unexpected turn. He received a phone call from the lumber delivery truck that was on its way to their location. The delivery truck was just a few minutes away, and the foreman shared this information in a social media post that became very popular. So, the woman parked in that spot had to leave very fast. Instead, she had a different attitude that day. The truck was bringing lumber to frame the roof of the house, so it was quite a lot of material. It would have taken about an hour to unload, and they needed to park there so that it wouldn't be right in the middle of the street. With that in mind, the foreman had to tell the woman that she was illegally parked and had to clear the spot for the truck to deliver materials. She scoffed at him and rudely stared back. "I'll just be a few minutes, and your truck isn't here." "Take a chill pill, dude," she said dismissively. The giant lumber truck was just turning around the corner. Before the foreman could process and respond to her rude remark, he looked at the truck driver and then back at the woman's car. She had put her window back up and was ignoring him. He put on his best customer service smile and waved at her through the window. She pushed it down halfway and angrily shouted, "What?" The foreman tried to be polite and, in a stronger voice, told her to move the car. Then, she had the brightest idea ever. "Can't you guys just unload around me?" "It's not that hard," she said dismissively. Shunned by her rudeness, the foreman took note of what she suggested and planned his revenge. He smiled and walked away, a brilliant plan forming in his head. He wrote on social media, "I instructed the delivery driver to park as closely to her as possible and block her in with a porta-potty at one end of our reserved spots and a parked car adjacent to our spots on the other end." She didn't get it at first, but a few minutes later, she realized that she was actually stuck. The woman was busy and not paying attention to the construction workers, so it took her a while to see that she couldn't get out. The foreman had one more thing to do now that the plan was in action. They unstrapped the lumber, and his team began humping material up the hill. Meanwhile, the foreman called police parking enforcement to report the situation. He later explained to social media users that his intention was to make sure he wouldn't get in trouble for blocking the street. The police told him they'd be there in 30 minutes. Then, hell broke loose. While they were still unloading lumber, the woman's child arrived. The foreman chuckled and said, "Wouldn't you believe it? Mom just realized the lumber truck is parked so close she can't open her driver's door to greet her kid. She managed to exit through the passenger door. I'm in a huge rush. You must move your truck right now so I can leave," she demanded. The truck driver stepped in. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's impossible. We have to unstrap the lumber to unload it, and according to our company policy, I can't move the truck with an unsecure load on it." I apologize. Naturally, she became furious, and things escalated. A police officer arrived and was surprised by the whole situation, which made her even angrier. Meanwhile, the foreman struggled to contain his laughter. "Forget your policy. I have somewhere to be," yelled the woman. Meanwhile, the traffic officer had just parked her car behind the truck. The foreman saw the officer getting out of her vehicle and turned to the enraged mom. "Can't you just pull out around it? It's not that hard," he said, giving her a taste of her own medicine. To his amazement, the woman got back inside the car, swore at him, and started the engine. Before the police officer could introduce herself, the mom slammed her car into reverse, crashed into the porta potty, knocked it over, and tried to mount the curb and drive on the sidewalk. Imagine the shock on the faces of the officer and the workers. The officer, the truck driver, and the foreman stood there in disbelief as she got halfway over the curb and got stuck. "I could hear her screaming obscenities over the idling truck from inside her car," said the foreman, but the mom had no idea she was being watched by the police officer. She was slapped in cuffs as the parking officer called for backup. She was promptly sat on the very curb she tried to drive over. Then she started lying to the officer about the whole thing. By the end of the ordeal, she was arrested and charged with child endangerment, her kid was in the back seat the whole time, reckless driving, destruction of property, driving on a suspended license. Adding to her troubles, her car was towed away. Her child went home with her grandma, while she spent some quality time in jail. The foreman finished telling his story, leaving people astonished at how many bad choices someone can make in less than 30 minutes. Some even found it unsurprising that her driver's license was already suspended. "I never expected her to actually follow my advice and move her car," the foreman remarked. "Well, maybe this will teach her a lesson, not to park in a tow zone." If you like this story, the next video on your screen will move you too. Don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and activate the notification bell so you won't miss our next videos. A huge kiss. See you in the next story.